Go ahead. He's all right. He's he's good.
And then Ernest Jones.
Ernest will be good. Ernest, we got good news, and we expect him to be out there tomorrow. So it's great.
Coach, with the play of, you saw what Jordan was able to do in the preseason game, and just to see the plays Tyler's making in practice, and of course, the big three guys who are veterans. Is this the most talented receiver group that you coach from top to bottom?
It's a deep group, and I think there's been a lot of signs of good things. But again, as we all know, there's a long way to go. We haven't even played a game yet. But the guys you mentioned, I've been really pleased with them. I thought, it was definitely a good example of Jordan Whittington being able to step up, make some plays with the opportunities. TJ is doing a good job of continuing to take things in the right direction. And so, and then we got those other guys that you mentioned, the 4 other guys that have done a lot of good things for us, but got to earn it every single day in this league. And I like where they're headed, but we've got a long way to go.
Coach, Ernest, do you expect any of the two guys to be back this week?
I don't have any updates on that right now, Adam, but I wouldn't expect any changes as it relates to tomorrow's practice with the Cowboys with those guys.
Coach, Byron Young and Jason Taylor II had great practices today. Many coaches and coordinators talk about putting players in a position to excel. What excites you about what Chris Shula is doing?
Just really what you said. I think really our defensive staff as a whole is identifying these players, and it's really about them. We can have all the ideas we want, but if it isn't brought to life by the players, then it doesn't mean anything. And you just mentioned, I thought JT had a great pick in the red zone. Contested throw, ended up jumping in front of it. That's probably going the other way for a touchdown. That was a big play for him. I really like what I've seen out of a lot of our young guys. Byron Young's a guy that's going to continue to take steps in the right direction. Joe Caniglia does such a good job with that group, but really Coach Shula, his leadership, his ability to be able to bring everybody together, create clarity with the vision that he has. I think it's really been on display throughout camp. I thought the way that our younger guys played the other day, I thought the way we handled sudden changes, the way that we tackled. When we've really made a big emphasis on approach fit and then being in finishing position. We don't tackle in practices. But to have that few missed tackles the other day, that was as clean of a first preseason game as I've been a part of, and really even a first regular season game from a defensive standpoint. I was super pleased, and I think that's a real credit to the players and the coaches.
What went into your decision to switch from the Chargers to the Cowboys?
Exactly what you know. It was really about when we made the plans with Coach Harbaugh, we were supposed to be in Woodland Hills. That would have trimmed the commute significantly. Wednesday traffic, you would have been talking about having our guys in the car for over 3 hours, potentially an hour and 45 there, and who knows how long it would take back. And so it was hard for me to look at the guys in the eye and say that made sense. And I actually asked Coach Harbaugh, or I told Coach Harbaugh on Sunday morning that we weren't going to be able to do that. I asked Coach McCarthy right before the game, I said, I know you guys are still in town. Would you have any interest? We'd come to you guys because the commute is, a lot less significant in terms of just the overall time. And so that was exclusively what the decision was. But for us to be able to get that work against another team, one that gives different techniques, different schemes on both sides, from an offense, defense, and even in the kicking game with Bones, it's great work for us. And, we need to get another good day tomorrow. Go ahead, I'll let you finish that, Fabrice.
How has Cam Kinchins, how did he play in the preseason game, and what would you like to see?
Yeah, he did really well. And you guys asked me about it last week, Gary. I thought he did an excellent job in the practice against Dallas. He's getting more and more comfortable of understanding where his play opportunities are and, making the play on the slant in the tight red area, knowing where he fits, understanding, all right, what are the types of coverage tools that we want to activate, and then just being able to cut it loose. So I've been really pleased with him, and I think a lot of guys are getting comfortable. You look at Aubrey, Beak, Mike Harris, they've done such a great job creating clarity, and Cam's only getting better. And really what I'm interested in seeing is, it's the cliche, but it's true. Let's just continue to progress. Let's continue to, make those little improvements. And as we accumulate those things over time, I think a lot of good things can give ourselves a chance to happen.
Now that you've watched some of the game and you watched Stetson, is it something where you feel comfortable having him as the backup for Matthew because Jimmy can't move?
Yeah, I think we still got, we got to be able to see some more body of work. What I did like, Sarah, was what I mentioned to you. I thought, to be able to stay together, that's a tough deal when you have the ball, when you turn it over a handful of times, and it was. And he kind of mentioned it, I think, in the post game to you guys, where thought he was seeing some things, and then, the mistakes ended up, being pretty costly. But he just kept playing. He kept fighting. The guys kept believing around him, and I was really impressed with just the resilience that he demonstrated. But we do need to take better care of the football. That's a very important thing. All of those are very correctable. And really, in a lot of them, it's not necessarily with the exception of a couple of them were bad decisions, and then a couple of them were just missed the way that you want to throw, make the type of layered throw, but you're going to the right spot, and all things that we can learn from. But he's got to continue to improve, and we're still in evaluation mode.
Coach,
Sean, I understand the variety and velocity of brought in terms of your own game, but what, if anything, have you changed over the years about the way you install it and the way you teach it?
Not too much. Maybe the order at which we install it, where you go with the priorities. But the duo play has always been a big play of ours. I know you and I have kind of talked about that, but there really hasn't been much. We've kind of added little wrinkles and differences, but I think the important thing for us is, not being the jack of all trades, master of none. What's the identity? What are the complementary mixers? And then how can we make sure that we keep people off base, whether we're in 12 personnel, 11 personnel? But if anything, I would say maybe just the order at which we install in terms of your weekly progression. But the teaching progression isn't too different within those concepts.
When you were first becoming a head coach, you had to decide how you were going to layer all the learning and all of that. Was there anyone or any lessons you learned on in terms of deciding how you wanted to do that?
Yeah, shoot. It's all about, the coaches that I've been around that have been great examples. You get a chance to learn from Coach Shanahan and from Kyle, from John Gruden, even from Jay. Bill Callahan, especially as it relates to the run game. When I'm first a coordinator, you're working with Chris Furster the first year, and then when you really start calling plays, you're working with Bill Callahan. And he had such a great teaching progression in terms of the different variety of schemes that he's activated throughout the course of his career. And so, what we envisioned we were going to be when we first got here ended up being very different. But those guys were all instrumental in terms of, putting together a teaching progression. And then obviously, as it relates to our first year, Matt LaFleur and Aaron Cromer were key and critical factors with that.
Kobe Durant, he seems to be making a lot of plays out there, bouncing back from last season. Just what's your thoughts on his play so far?
He's been outstanding. He's understanding. He's got such great movement. He's really understanding, how to be able to trigger on concepts, where those play opportunities arise. You hear me talk about that a lot, but that's a big thing, especially based on whatever the defensive call is. But he's competitive as hell. He really understands how to be able to play a lot of the techniques that Aubrey's coaching, specifically from the outside corner location. He has position flex. He's had as consistent and as good a camp as anybody on the defensive side of the ball. I've been so pleased with the Kobe Durant. He's been awesome.
Zach shows up. That's one tape from Sunday.
Yeah. Zach Thomas?
Van Valkenburg.
Yeah. Van.
How has he continued to work after being the practice squad like last year?
Just what you said, Adam. He just maximizes his opportunities. And you look at the second effort play that he makes on the sack. He had a couple other opportunities where he's forcing the ball to come out a little bit quicker. His pursuit, being able to read out of the stack in some of the screen games. He's a smart, conscientious player. And, he takes coaching really well from Joe. And, I think that group as a whole has really elevated their play. But I was pleased with him. I thought we saw some good things from Keir Thomas. And so Van did make a lot of good plays. And Zach Thomas did a good job for the offense as well. Both Zachs.